It's fully threaded radio special report.
What I look at is we don't sell fasteners. We don't sell nuts, bolts, and washers. We sell capacity. And if you need additional space on your shop floor, we can provide that for you. If you need additional cash flow, we can help you with that. You need engineering support to free you up with how you design and do things. We do that. So we have warehouses. We have the financial backing. We don't sell nuts, bolts, and washers. We sell capacity.
Hi everyone, Eric Dudas here, and this is a fully threaded radio special episode. Thanks for clicking in. Regular listeners of the podcast know that Würth Industry has been a long-time partner. And with this support, we not only provide industry interviews, news, and commentary, but also things like the Fastener Distributor Index and the FCH Sourcing Network platform, which is just about ready to get a massive and long overdue upgrade, by the way. So stay tuned. We'll be discussing that quite a bit in detail soon. This episode is a full-length conversation with Würth Industry Executive Vice President Larry Stevens. I met Larry in person for the first time at this year's IFE in Las Vegas, and he's very easy to talk with. During the discussion, we cover his tenure building Würth's business in Asia, as well as what he's focused on today, as the company continues its transformation as a truly unified global industrial distribution powerhouse. We cover lots of ground, and he's quite candid about how he got to his current role as skipper of Winna. And I think you'll get a feel for the way he's thinking on a range of issues, as diverse as the role of the Rising BRICS Coalition to the culture shock he felt when he returned to the U.S. after 16 years in China. We touch on his early career, AI, additive manufacturing, and a whole lot more. Again, Würth has been a great partner of Fully Threaded for many years, and I'll also point out that the title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Brighton Best International, Global Fasteners, and Star Stainless. Fully Threaded is also sponsored by Buckeye Fasteners, BTM Manufacturing, Eurolink Fastener Supply Service, Fastener Technology International, InSequel Software, J-Land Franco, Solution Industries, 3Q Inc., Volt Industrial Plastics, and of course, Würth Industry. I really enjoyed putting this one together, folks, and getting to know Larry, and I know you'll enjoy hearing it. Thanks again for listening. Now, here's Larry Stevens, Executive Vice President of Würth Industry. Larry Stevens, thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you, Eric. I appreciate the invitation. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Well, I am too. You know, we're heading into Q4 2024 already, and so much is happening for Würth right now, and we could take the whole day, really, and not cover it all. But when we spoke in Las Vegas at the Fastener Show last week, we promised to start off with a few personal adventure stories, so I'm going to do my best to hold you to that.
Oh, I'll do my best to keep them clean, and we'll save the more risque ones to a later time.
Okay, deal. Well, you're at the pinnacle right now, and you're doing things on an enormous scale, but you come from humble beginnings. You're an Ohio guy, aren't you?
Absolutely. You know, you live in Ohio, so I have by law have to say OH.
Oh, yeah. IO.
There you go. Now we're okay. So, yeah, I was fortunate enough. I grew up on the Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania borders, a little town called Columbiana, and it's most famous for the birthplace of Harvey Firestone. So there's a lot of history for the community. It's not really that old, but it was a nice little place to grow up, and it really helped me as I moved out and went out into the world and traveled around the United States. I've been very fortunate enough in this industry, to see lots of neat and unique places, and getting to travel around and see how different the United States is, how different the rest of the world is from where I grew up, has been really beneficial for me. And I really, really enjoyed it and taken a lot away from that.
We spoke in Las Vegas, and you talked in that brief time a lot, actually, about your experiences in Asia. And so for the last 16 years before you came back to skipper Würth, the North American, I guess, at the top, how did you wind up in Asia? I mean, that's really the beginning of this chapter of your career. I mean, how did that transaction happen?
Well, I started out in the industry with Flexalloy, and I started in 1996. and the company was really going well, but it got to a point where it was either we had to start acquiring companies or the ownership, Andy Rayburn, needed to sell the company. And he decided to sell it, and we were purchased by Textron. And I was with Textron for about 2 years, and they made the decision that I was no longer part of the solution and would probably be considered part of the problems. So I was given the opportunity to leave, and I joined Würth. So I left on a Thursday, called up a good friend of mine, Brad Spencer, who had left Flexloy and went to Würth Service Supply, and we met at a place called Scorchers for a couple of wings and to commiserate our experiences. And 8 days later, I was in Wichita, Kansas as a branch manager for Würth Service Supply, responsible for Wichita, Kansas and Springfield, Missouri. Now, not to say anything negative about Wichita, Kansas, but it was a tad lonely. So when the opportunity was presented, the question was asked by Mark Strangquist, would I be interested in going to China? I said, yeah, heck yeah. And there was, well, the natural question was, have you been there before? I said, no, I probably can't even find it on a map, but I'm living in Wichita, Kansas. So
Is that right?
yeah. So went with 9 other individuals, had a round of interviews, and I got the opportunity to go. And I got there and landed in April of 2005 and had my preconceived notions of what China looked like, what it was like. You know, I, of course, had read The Rape of Nanjing and thinking that, well, Japan wasn't much different. I'd read, you know, like Shogun and some things about Hong Kong. Well, Shanghai is nothing like that. It was a very modern, thriving city, bright, but yet still in 2005, it had a little bit of a wild, wild west feel to it. They turned the city lights off at, 8 o'clock every night, and pollution was extremely bad. But things had started to loosen up. I could live wherever I wanted, and it was just a real, real adventure to be said, well, here you go. Go start a company. And I said, well, how do you do that? They go, well, go sell something. And so I had another gentleman named Arnie Brandis from Germany came over, and the two of us worked together to open what was then called Würth Fasteners Trading. And we made a ton of mistakes. And I'll say right now, that's one of the beautiful things about Würth and being a family owned company. They gave me and they give lots of people a tremendous opportunity to go out, learn, make mistakes, and to learn from those mistakes. They don't overreact when you make a mistake. They, of course, don't want to lose tons and tons of money through mistakes and mistakes that are, morally questionable, we'll put it that way, aren't permitted. But good, honest, hey, I tried something, it didn't quite work out. They let you do that. And so I got the opportunity to go to China, open a company from a green field and make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes. So after my contract was ended, I came back for about 17 months and then went back to China and stayed there for 14 years and 9 months. So that's really how it all started. Just somebody said, would you like to go somewhere? And I said, yes.
This is one of those mind-blowing fastener stories that I love so much. You just basically leave on a mission completely unknown. And this time, I've never heard it actually driven out of boredom, but this is great, Larry.
Well, you know where I grew up, the area. And at the time, this was the late 70s, early 80s, the steel industry had died. The rubber industry in Akron had died or relocated, let's put it that way. The coal mines were played out. There wasn't a lot of work. So any place that seemed new, fresh, and exciting, that was the place to go. So honestly, if they'd said, hey, go to Turkey, you want to go to India, South Africa, boy, it wasn't necessarily just China. It was the chance of adventure, the chance to go and see something and to ride. I'm not so fond of riding on airplanes now, but back then to take a flight overseas, that was amazing. So that was a lot of fun. And it was just a tremendous opportunity that I had a lot of fun with.
Right. Well, you expanded your horizons, that's for sure. And again, looking back and to where you are now, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Well, let me ask you this. During your period there, so that was 2005, how would you characterize the whole fastener industry shift into manufacturing so heavily in Asia at that point, right? I mean, it was already in full thrust, and the master distribution model in North America had already started really on this or was it right about to start on this consolidation period? How do you characterize it?
Well, I would say it had started already, and when I was with Flexalloy again, we had the ownership had made a decision that they should sell versus continuing try to finance themselves and to buy others. So this was, I'll say, right near the beginning of the consolidation process, and I think a lot of the manufacturing had already moved down south into Mexico. I don't know what North American manufacturing had actually moved over to Asia at that time. I think, in my opinion, most of it was already homegrown over there. But at the time, it seemed like specials were coming from Taiwan and standards were coming more from the mainland. I don't remember Vietnam or Thailand having much of an industry for fasteners, but I didn't do a whole lot of buying myself. And once I got to mainland China, that's where our main focus was. So we were there to service customers that were in China and to buy locally and to, warehouse local, manage the quality, manage the supply chain, and to supply local. We had no desire to export or to import. We tried to only buy local and manage it local. So we usually, depending upon the customers we were doing, we usually only imported about 4% of the products that we sold in China through what is now Würth Industry China. So at some point, that number, the value would stay that, but maybe the number of parts jumped up to about 17% of our parts. But those were usually parts that were very specific and had to come from a specific manufacturer that was not in China.
Wow, I'm really surprised to hear that because you answered my next question in that answer, and I'm just very surprised with all the material coming across the water into North America. I'm shocked.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'd say we had sourcing organizations. Würth has sourcing organization there called Würth International, and most of the companies there are, as you see at the Fastener Show, many of the suppliers, both throughout Southeast Asia, India, Turkey, all of the Asian suppliers, the command of the English language, both written and spoken, is excellent. People don't seem to comprehend how educated the people are in Asia. So the need to have people there was more to do our quality inspection pre-shipment, which we have I apologize that I'm not so good with English measurements anymore, but we have 800 square meter lab at our CDC in Haiyan, just south of Shanghai. So we have the second largest lab in the Würth Group in mainland China, and we have a large lab also in Taiwan. So what we were doing a lot more of in support of the rest of the group was quality, supplier auditing, making sure that they were qualified and following the rules of the group when it comes to labor laws and how they process and process management, controls, all of the things that are necessary to generate a quality product. So as far as actual sourcing and purchasing on behalf of the organizations, that was done through the organizations themselves. So we did more if there was an expedite or they needed somebody to run over and talk to somebody concerning answering a technical question. That's what we were doing to support the rest of the world. So personally, we did not purchase anything and export it. We were there to service local customers and to provide the same level of service that the customers demand and want globally. So that was our main purpose, not to be a sourcing organization.
So as you developed over there and ultimately moved full time for those 14 years, you must have had to learn each piece of this one by one. And now today, here you are with a pretty good mastery of across the board skills.
Well, I'd love to say, yeah. But
I read your LinkedIn bio, Larry.
No. the real fact of it is the beautiful thing of what I experienced was, as you read my bio, I'm not an Ivy Leaguer. I don't have a McKinsey worthy CV, and I didn't finish the top of my class. I graduated from the University of Akron. Um, I was there a little bit longer than most people because I had a lot of fun. And so I wasn't the best of students, and I've never been the best, never had the best scores, or, never had these, yeah, oh, this is the guy type of things. But it was more, I learned very quickly to, judge people, to find talent, and to work with them. I was very fortunate that when I went to China, and this would be a key takeaway for me, and if anybody, young people, was to ask me, the key is to allow other people to be successful, to turn your weaknesses into a strength. And I don't speak the language. And I found out very quickly I could not speak the language. I could order a beer and some other things, and
Whew,
I
that's
could get
good.
around. Yeah, that was a key.
It is the fastener industry after all.
Absolutely. And you saw my physique. I'm not over exercised. Um, so, I just got the opportunity to learn how to let people be successful. And when it comes to all facets of the company, I got very fortunate that I was able to hire some spectacular people who understood the business, learned very quickly, and understood where we want to go and how we wanted to do things. So, yes, I did visit suppliers. I spent a long time visiting customers, and we worked on different topics, but most of it was done by the people there. So I got the opportunity to learn how to take every one of my weaknesses and turn it into a strength. And that's where you can say, how did you survive for 16 years in China when you don't speak the language? You're not an engineer. You never were very successful as a salesperson. How is that possible? Well, I got the opportunity to lead a fantastic group of individuals. And, I learned very quickly that I can't do everything. So I learned not to micromanage, and I learned how to let other people make mistakes. So I'm just very fortunate in getting that chance and that opportunity to grow and develop myself by staying out of the way and ordering a beer.
Amazing what happens when you do that, isn't it?
It is. It is. It is. It is.
You mentioned Mark Strandquist a moment ago when you were talking about how you made it over to Asia initially. And as you probably know, and most listeners do, Mark was honored posthumously this year by the NFDA. He received the Fastener Professional of the Year award. And so it turns out your connection with Mark was very fortuitous. And as you're explaining all this, it kind of reminds me about his story a little bit, because he was kind of the same way in some ways.
Yeah, and I would say that Mark's greatest strength, as I remember it, was that, and I apologize, this kind of sounds a little bit like an ego trip, but Mark had a fantastic ability to recognize talent, and he was never afraid to, let's say, overstock talent. And he had the ability that maybe there was three people for the same job, but he had the ability to hire all three and to keep them all interested by giving them three majorly different tasks, even if it wasn't their position to begin with. And I took that with me over to China as an example. I had used to drive the people crazy. I had a technique that when the person came in and complained about something, oh, that was their job. Okay, if you complained about the smell of the bus, you were now in charge of the bus. If you complained, I had salespeople that complained about purchasing. No, that they were in charge of purchasing. And that was to get people out of their ruts and allow them to expand and do other things. And Mark seemed, but maybe nobody would agree with me, but I thought he did an excellent job of identifying talent, letting them be successful, and challenging them and letting them go do other things than what they might have been hired to do. And I would think that would be one of the reasons you would have given him the award. Maybe I was long gone, and I'm completely wrong in that, but I don't believe I am. I think that's one of the great strengths that he had. He was also a phenomenal salesman, and just high energy all the time.
Well, it's an interesting take. I mean, he had an amazing group of people in his orbit, so that
Yeah.
probably explains it.
And he had some great mentors as well. I knew Ron Nordstrom, who, he would be a guy, I think if Mark was here, would say had a huge influence on his life, and was really, really an interesting man that I always enjoyed talking to. So I'm sure Mark could give you the same stories about how he learned from other people. So.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of your stories from Asia, and particularly involving the culture shock that you experienced when you dipped your toe in Asia and subsequently decided to stay there. I know there's got to be a bunch of them. I mean, can you pull one out that maybe illustrates the whole thing?
Well, I'd have to say we built well, there's probably too many to remember in the very beginning. Again, probably a lot more that need to spend a little bit of time with a couple of beers. But I'd say one of the things that amazed me the most, and I don't want to say a culture shock, but I found it very fascinating that everybody goes over there and they read books on how to do business. And the first thing that I'll say was a culture shock is the Chinese just do business. They don't read any books about doing business. Um, so while we're all busy reading books about how to do business, they're just doing it. And that would be one thing. They just do business, and they don't write books about it. And nobody ever talked to me about books that they read about how to do business in China. Americans, we read books on how to do business in the United States. We read books on how to do business in Europe. We read books on how to do business in China. The Chinese just do business. So that was one thing. Another real cultural shock, I'll say, is that in many ways, the thought process is 180 degrees from how we grew up and learned. So, very simple thing was that as we were growing up, I was taught that to cheat somebody was bad. The Chinese children are taught to be cheated is bad. So it's a little fundamental difference, but it really drives a lot of the behavior and what you would see and experience there. It's your fault if you get cheated. And in our culture, at least how I was raised, well, people had sympathy for me if I got cheated because the other guy was bad. In China, they had no sympathy for me if I got cheated. I was a fool. A fool gets
Right, right.
cheated.
Very
So
interesting.
yeah, it's a different mindset, and you see that in how people drive. So, the that and how food plays so much of part of the culture and how to do business and stuff like that. The Chinese, you hear about all the exotic and crazy food. Oh, those people don't eat it. They want to see how you react when you eat it.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Is this
yeah.
really what that's all about? It's all a scam for tourists?
I believe so. I believe so. What really fascinated the Chinese about me is, I grew up where I grew up in the southern part of, southeast part of Ohio, and my grandparents were children of the Depression or young adults in the Depression, and whatever my grandfather could catch, we ate. And that turns out to be a lot of the things that people tried to shock me with in China. Now, we didn't eat dogs here, but, if it was a snake, a turtle, frogs, you name it, if it could be caught, my grandmother knew how to cook it. So a lot of the foods I ate were very, very comfortable to me because it reminded me of being young with my
All right.
grandparents.
You were already desensitized.
Oh yeah, and it was a lot of fun to try different things, and whether it be duck tongue or chicken feet or river worms. I would not recommend that, but everything else I really enjoyed, and there were a couple things I only tried once, but most everything was a lot of fun.
I can imagine that. Yeah, I don't think I'd be going back for seconds on the river worms either, Larry.
Yeah, I know for sure I had several beers in me before I tried that one.
All right, now here's the biggie. I didn't think we'd be venturing into these waters, actually, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. The great Bruce Darling of Porteous,
Mhm.
probably encountered him in your various travels, but he once told a story at the Pac West. This is years ago now, but he told a story about receiving the great honor at the table in front of a whole lineup of dignitaries, and he was kind of corralled into eating a deer penis.
Well, unfortunately for me, I never held such an honor and was never held in that high esteem.
Oh, never went down that road, huh? Okay.
No, no, but yeah, no, they never honored me with such a thing. Nor did I get the chance to eat any monkey brains.
I
But
think I might have drawn the line there too. But it's
yeah,
almost like you have to sit through an episode of Fear Factor to do business in some places.
some places, but there's also a level of respect that many times people don't really understand there. You can say no, no, no. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that. They don't mind, if they want you to try it, sure. But like the concept of, well, you have to drink or you need to smoke. They want you to try the food for sure, but they themselves probably won't eat it. But like when it came to drinking and smoking and things of that nature, it was very easy to say, well, no, thank you. I don't do that. And they would accept that. They were never, the people that I always dealt with all throughout China and Asia were never offended if I said, no, I've had enough, or no, I prefer not to have wine at 9 a.m. And no, I don't smoke. So there were a lot of, I'll say, myths that I had the opportunity to see were not true. So it was okay to say no, and if you didn't really want to eat that part of the deer, I think it was okay to say no. But I never got that honor.
Okay, good to know. It helps to put that in some perspective a little bit. When you were saying earlier that most Americans, or I guess it's North Americans, aren't really aware of how educated and how people do business in Asia, China specifically, we're talking about here, it's no surprise. So there's a lot of misunderstanding, I would say. And so this is all very enlightening, I think, to a lot of people. Is there any other glaring misconception that you can think of right now that we should know about?
Well, I think that the biggest misconception, in my opinion, is that people were walking around in fear. That the government is very draconian. That if you spit on the street or if you step on a crack, you're going to go into prison for the next 20 years. No, you can't be an idiot, that's for sure. And if you violate common decency and things of that nature, you'll wind up in jail. But if you're just a normal person and you're enjoying life, you'll find that the people of China and all of Asia are just wanting the same things you are. They want to have a family, they want to have fun, they want a good, comfortable living. They want to live in a comfortable place and have a safe place to live. They want to live in peace. So that was one of those things that were quickly changed my opinion when I got over there was, they weren't draconian. There weren't police weren't running around beating people up. And like, when I grew up, where I grew up and when I grew up with, I have an uncle that went to Vietnam. My brother graduated or was almost drafted. They ended the draft before he graduated high school. And when I went to Vietnam, I had certain expectations that I would not be welcome, that there would be this hostility toward me, but it wasn't. The Vietnamese are very welcoming. They're very curious and interested, and same with the people in Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, Korea, Japan, all throughout Asia. People were very welcoming and warm. So this fear that the governments were going to arrest you at the drop of a hat, I never saw it, never experienced it, never knew anybody who experienced it.
Well, it's very comforting to reacquaint ourselves with the idea that there's some universal human principles and that we are part of a human family. And some of these things are, again, they're universal.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned to me when, again, we were speaking in Vegas that when you returned to North America, when you got back to the U.S., things had changed in a lot of ways that were a little shocking to you. So you had reverse culture shock a little bit when you returned back in 22. I'm sure you visited from time to time, but when you actually came to relocate, that was kind of surprising to you, it sounds like.
It was, and as you and I had talked about at the time, it was quite a culture shock coming back. Uh, how expensive things had gotten, that would be one. The lack, to me, the perception of a lack of respect for each other and for authority and for like the way people were treating other people was a complete shock to me. And yeah, I would come back for 2 weeks a year, but to see the way people were treating the people who work in restaurants, or even how the restaurant people were treating the patrons, or how people were treating each other, it just was not what I remembered. And it just was disappointing that, we seem to have been digressing and going backwards in how we were treating each other. And that was one thing. And then, well, I would say our movement in technology. I think so many of the things that we were doing in Asia that other people would not necessarily like or recognize is, like paperless. I never carried any cash for a long, long time. And the facial recognition, I know that's a very sensitive topic that you'll look at your phone to turn it on, but, these things like that. So just things that I weren't quite expecting.
Do you think that these technologies, and I want to ask you about technology as it applies to supply chain management and so forth, but in terms of these cultural impacts that we're touching on, I mean, do you see these things as depersonalizing to a point where it's affecting our demeanor as a society? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I never thought about it in that way. It just became part of normal life, and those things just haven't happened here, I guess, or maybe they're happening much, much slower. So I never thought about it as depersonalizing everything. It just became, the use of the technology just became so much more convenient.
Oh, okay. I think I misunderstood. You're saying that in Asia it was prolific already, and so
Yeah,
we're a little bit delayed. And but the contrast. Okay, I got you.
yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So let me ask you this then: what about popular entertainment, music, television, what they're exposed to over there? Would you say that it's fostering a more respectful behavior? I mean, is that maybe it?
No, I don't. I don't know about that. Um, I would say it's just that the people were raised to be a little bit more courteous. They're, well, not courteous. There's a lot of people, so when you first go over there, you feel that people are rude, but they're not necessarily rude. There's just a lot of people. But you never see people I never experienced people just outright disrespecting somebody else, or, maybe yelling at somebody who didn't bring the right food. They might say, "Hey, I didn't order this." But there just was not this hostility that it felt like when I came back. I don't explain it very well, but it just was, I'll say, a feeling of a lack of respect that you seem to have in all of Asia for each other. That I don't know what causes it or how it changed so much.
Well, okay, we could continue talking about your experiences in Asia, as I said, pretty much all day. Um, let's turn the page now to touch on that technology question. It's been a long time coming, but with so many technologies reaching such an advanced stage, it feels like we're moving into a fully digital age. Might be a little ways off, but we're going there. So, what's the most impactful thing that you think is going to hit the supply chain technology wise that we should be looking at or that you're already gearing up for? I mean, what's your overall outlook on all this?
Well, I think it's really fascinating. Number one, I hope we never lose the human interaction, but and I don't know the proper technology terms, but when we look at the artificial intelligence aspect of things, and how we will be able to manage and control the use of data or the flow of data from the customer through companies like ourselves, the distributors, the service providers, all the way down to the manufacturer, all the way to the mills, and how we can connect all of that data to become much more accurate and much more precise in the elimination of waste, whether it be natural materials, whether it be time, all of those things. I think that's really going to be important. It's really going to be fascinating when we can connect the end user all the way back to the raw material producer through linking all of these datas and the systems. And it probably will never be in my lifetime that that'll happen, but I think that's where we got to go, and that's what's really going to be exciting. That experimenting and exploring that into the future. How do we connect all of these things together in a seamless path that will be beneficial for everybody. I mean, it'll eliminate waste. It'll eliminate, how we waste energy. It'll eliminate how we waste raw materials. It'll just streamline everything because in every process today, everybody knows that there's scrap, there's waste, and we're wasting our raw materials, we're wasting our energy. And, when we can get that all linked together, we can become very efficient and really help sustain things moving forward. So to me, I think it's that type of technology and where we're going with it is, to me, the most important thing that we're looking at today.
Well, are you working with your supply chain partners, both upstream and downstream, to get this going? I mean, you guys must be in the driver's seat in a lot of ways in this area.
Absolutely, we're trying our best, but it is something that is so almost science fiction that it is everybody's interested in, but putting the adequate resources toward it is something that everybody's trying to figure out the best way to do it and how to do it. So the quick answer was yes. How successful we are, we're still at the infancy stage, especially with our industry. I mean, if you kind of look at our industry, you can say, well, we've standardized thread pitches, we've standardized, materials, but we haven't standardized box quantities, you know. So I think there's lots of opportunity still to do old fashioned stuff to get us all ready to go. But yeah, the answer was yes, we're working on it both with our customers and with our suppliers. We have a long, long, long way to go. We're just now scratching the surface on this and what it can do for us, and putting the adequate number of resources on all levels of the business toward this is something I think our competitors, our customers, our suppliers, everybody's trying to figure out how to invest, where to invest, and where this is taking us. So I think it's going to be a very, very exciting time for the next 4 or 5 years in figuring out where we're going to go with this and how we're going to do it. But it's a huge, huge opportunity, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
I think as people listen to your comments there's going to be kind of a sigh of relief because there's so much hype that addresses these various technologies that are in the news and everything. I think there's a fear that people are behind and they look around and they see even the big guys are figuring it out. It's kind of comforting, to tell you the truth, Larry.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, I agree that I won't say some of the things I've heard in the past, but we as an industry and we as people like to use a lot of buzzwords, but I think that everybody, even the biggest of companies, are still trying to find their ways with even some of the simplest things that aren't even technology oriented. Whether it's company culture, how we deal with different topics globally. So I haven't met anybody that's behind on it because don't know anybody who's ahead. So,
Got
uh,
it. Got it. Well, let me ask you this. You're driving, among other things, additive business. And
mhm.
I've always kind of had my eye on that. AJ has been on the podcast several times giving us updates. The latest was a whole system that you have in place now to do a variety of services, engineering, all the way down to fulfillment, equipment, leasing, it sounds like.
Yep.
So, how's that additive manufacturing side of things going for you?
Oh, it's really, really exciting. I tell you what, I find it very, very fascinating. The things that we're doing and the opportunities that it presents. Again, also finding where that fits in this whole supply chain world. Um, really, I don't know if you're a Star Trek fan, but we're really almost to the point where you're the replicator. You just kind of walk up to it and you say,
Exactly.
yeah, hey, I need tea, Earl Grey. I don't remember the rest of it, but the things that they're doing and the team that AJ has, those are some smart people there. Ed Taggart and the whole team over there, they just are really in love with what they're doing and they're having so much fun and the value that they're bringing. We have a digital inventory system that is really so new that everybody wants it, but nobody's quite sure how they're going to use it. But it's something that's going to allow the world to have parts, spare parts specifically, instantaneously, per se. At a moment's notice, you can print a part and be off and running Our customers love it. Our suppliers are very intrigued by it. It's so new that they're not 100% sure what we can do with it or what they can do with it. But we have a digital inventory service that will allow people to get a part within a day that doesn't require a production run of 10,000 pieces. So it allows people to keep equipment in the field running longer, much, much longer without these really, really, really expensive inventory carrying costs. It doesn't waste raw materials. It allows us to conserve our natural resources. And the things that we're doing, and probably one of the most important things, and one of the really, it's a shame that this is the major topic, is the data security. These guys have really locked that in, and it's the protection of the customer's data is first and foremost probably the most important part of the digital inventory services. So what AJ and his team is doing is just so fascinating, and like I said earlier, it's almost science fiction. It's just so logical. But those guys I really enjoy being around them because they make you feel young. They're not young, not all of them, uh, but they're just so brilliant, and they can explain it in a way that it makes it sound so simple and obvious. But it's really exciting stuff that they're working on, and it really is something that not all customers understand how valuable it is. We just got to get a better job, do a better job of educating them on how good this can be. But it is really fascinating stuff that they're doing, and it's really something that'll help differentiate ourselves globally and really help the whole industry globally to advance and, as I said, help us save natural resources and do things the right way moving forward.
Well, we always enjoy getting those updates, and on Fully Threaded Radio, we've been advocating for and watching 3D printing / additive manufacturing since I first really heard of it, probably back in, I don't know, 2012, 2014, in that zone.
Yeah.
And so when this whole thing started blossoming with Würth, I was thrilled. And then when AJ came on, I was even more thrilled.
Yeah, he's a fantastic young man, and he really knows how to motivate his team, and he's just a joy to be around and to work with. And yeah, the future's theirs, that generation and what they're doing.
One more thing on the additive. I don't know if you're plugged in at this level or not, but are you expecting any kind of a breakthrough moment, for additive that's really going to rip it open? I mean, there's been a long time that we've been waiting for something like that, and many advancements have been made, no doubt. A lot of exotic metals can be formed now and so forth, but it's still holding back for some reason. I mean, where's the singularity here?
I don't know. I'm not technical enough, but in my mind, when they can, this is going to sound goofy, when they can print in 3D printing. Um, so in most of the technology that I've ever witnessed and seen, you've got the lasers or the things above the filament coming in a single point. And when they can be printing from, let's say, they got 6 sides all at once, then you can really shorten lead times and make it almost, I don't want to say instantaneous, but then you can really speed it up and maybe even make it into a production atmosphere. Because right now it's just too expensive to be making things on 3D printing that are in mass production.
Right. Nobody's expecting to see grade 2 machine screws rolling off of a 3D printer, I don't think.
No, not anytime soon. But I don't know what the next step is. But I'd say, and that's in my opinion. They might just all laugh at me if they heard that. So I think to me that's what it is. So
it's a good point. Maybe they are. I mean, what do we know, right?
yeah, I mean that's exactly it. They're laughing at me. But I just, I heard, I forget who it was talking to me about artificial intelligence. I apologize. I met so many people in the show, and they were talking about they had taken all of these podcasts, these technical trainings, and had made it like a chat GTP.
Yeah, that was us.
That was you. Okay,
yeah.
Good.
Wait till you see. Yeah, wait till you see it. Scroogle.
Yeah, and it's so cool. And you said, The first question you ask is which bolts can't you make? And it was the 8.8, or excuse me, the 10.9s, 12.9s. And my first question to me was, why not? And it was because of the hardness. But I don't understand. You can make it out of any material you want, and you're basically heat treating it right there. And I understand you need to bake it later to release some stress and all those neat things. We just talked about hydrogen embrittlement and all those other cool things. But I don't see why you can't make those bolts in 3D printing. So there's still limitations to it.
Right. Well, now you're hitting on a limitation of 3D printing, Larry, but you're also hitting on a limitation of AI.
Yeah,
Because I'll tell you what, as we're feeding this thing data and we're teaching it, it appears to make inferences, which I don't believe that it actually is. It just appears to be. And it's making all of its pronouncements based on conventional knowledge.
exactly.
So, that's why it's artificial. It really isn't intelligence yet. And I don't know if it ever does cross that line. But what it can do at this point is regurgitate with stunning speed these amazing answers. And so far, everybody we showed it to, and we had a very crude demo version of this thing in Vegas, but everybody was flabbergasted when they saw what it does.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating. And um, that instantaneous data, I mean, to get that back so quick, that's just the same thing that we talked a little bit about, I would say, when it comes to facial recognition and all of those things, how technology is advancing and what it can do for us. We just don't know. And it's so fun to hear and see. And, like you said, hey, it's only regurgitating what we know, but the speed that what it's doing is fascinating. It's so fascinating.
Right. Confusing humanity at very high speed.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, but on a positive note, I had no idea who said it, but apparently I said it accurate when, and it was you that said it. So I listened partway.
Yeah, that was good. We were all absorbing a whole lot of information while we were there, and it turns into a blur, but you do walk away with quite a bit. And it was really great to see you there. And let's get your reactions overall to the show. Previously, you mentioned that this was your first one, which I guess I can understand. You've been away for a long time, but it's very refreshing to hear somebody, especially at your level, who's getting a first glimpse of the fastener show. What are your takeaways there? I mean, you might have sort of fresh eyes on this whole issue.
Well, I really enjoyed it, and I don't know if I talked with you about it, but I talked with like Jeff Schmidt and the guys from Brixton about the topic that the show to me, I'm accustomed to the Asian type, shows. It was very, very quiet. I'm used to there being music playing, people having their videos, their marketing and advertising type activities taking place and trying to draw people to their booths. The show all overall, I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed meeting a lot of people that I've only known their names. I got to meet some old friends I haven't seen in years. But the show to me, I'll say, was very quiet. I was not expecting it to be so quiet. On one hand, I was told by a couple people that, well, 2 days is too long. But on the other hand, when you're doing the proper discussions and you're meeting with suppliers and you're really engaged with what's happening, 4 days is too short. So, I would say to me, my first impression was the show's too quiet. I would like to, as you talked about a little bit ago, intermingling all of the different countries into one nice, beautiful melting pot. And it would be too short. But I wasn't the one working in the booths. Having done both walk around aimlessly and work in booths, 4 days can be a heck of a marathon. So I really enjoyed it. I don't think I would change anything other than maybe how everybody's intermingled, but it was fascinating to me and I really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to going out again. Somebody made mention that they should try to rotate it. Was that also you?
That's a pretty common reaction. There's a lot of controversy on that. Some people are tired of going to Vegas, but others really like the momentum they have there. So I think personally, I think it's a no-win conversation because there is no right answer, and both sides have some virtue and some drawbacks. I guess I'm coming down. I'll say it formally here. I'm coming down on I hate to say this, Larry,
Yeah.
keep it in Vegas just because of the momentum side of it.
Oh, and Las Vegas is built for conventions. I'm sure
Right.
it'd be challenging to find. I don't know the total attendance there, the number of people that came through the doors. Um,
I think it's in the ballpark of somewhere between 4 and 5,000.
okay, okay. But that seems like a pretty good number. And I thought the accommodations were great. I personally don't enjoy gambling, but the food and everything that Mandalay Bay had to offer was fantastic. And again, I really, really enjoyed myself as the first show. And now, I'll get to go again next year, hopefully, and I'll have a better feel for what's going on, how things are going, and I'll just be more comfortable as to how things work and what's going on. But for me, it was a great pleasure to be there, and we had the opportunity to sponsor the session stage and what we're doing and getting our Worth brand out there. I think we'll be a little bit more active in what we're doing next year and continue to develop and grow this. So I really enjoyed it, and I have no objections to going to Vegas again. First time to the show, first time ever to Vegas. So
Wow.
uh,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, you addressed a couple of my questions right there with those comments. My only complaint with what Worth is doing and the show is we had no D Ward on the floor this year. That hurt a lot of people, Larry.
And I did that on purpose. He's just nothing but a boat anchor. He's been dragging us down for years. No, he's a fantastic young guy, and he relocated with his family. He's in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Actually, today he's in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. Um, so he's got a tremendous career ahead of him, and I know everybody loves him. He's got a fantastic personality, and his personality works exceptionally well, or will work exceptionally well in Asia. He's a teacher, he's a coach, he's a leader that people enjoy being around and they follow. So he's going to do spectacular in Asia. And the good news is that he's not following a superstar, so he can only take the team up. But I'll continue to remind him that he has to lie through his teeth about who he replaced. So, but he's going to do fantastic, and I think he's already enjoying it. It's a great young team throughout the Asia Pacific and Africa region for us, and honestly, all of the infrastructure is there for us to be successful. And what we really have been missing is a dynamic sales leader, and that's D. So he's got a great team now, and as I said earlier, and you know him, he's a fantastic coach. He's a fantastic motivator, and he's just going to do fantastic. And when his time is up, he's not going to want to leave. Um, but I'm
No.
sure we'll have a position for him that will maybe force him to leave. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, he told us the story about his family came together to make this decision and they were all gung ho. So it's a
Yeah.
remarkable story overall. Again, I'll say it overall, it was sad that he wasn't there this year. The D Ward fan club was a little, forlorn, but we understand. So good to hear all that stuff.
Well, I'm a new member of the fan club, so but he's been in that marine industry for so long, and he's become an anchor. He drags us down.
That's right. Well, we're working with the Marine and Brixton folks these days on some inventory issues and getting to know them a whole lot better. And a lot of stuff going on at Worth. And you touched on something while we were talking about the show there a moment ago with all the things that Worth is involved in with the International Fastener Expo. And that's a relatively new development. So you've taken a little bit of turn and you're driving Worth in a lot of directions right now. I mean, what's kind of the highlight of what you're trying to do these days, Larry, with Worth?
Well, what we're trying to do is bring our organization to the next level. When you look at what Worth did in the United States, they purchased a lot of really strong regional players, and they've allowed those companies to develop and grow and to stay in their niche markets. But when we look around the world and we see throughout the rest of the world, all of the companies are operating on the same operating system. They're using the exact same part number system. So Worth Industry, what we call WinWork globally, is completely connected. And that hasn't existed in the United States because many of these legacy companies that were purchased are not using the same operating system. Because in Asia, almost all of the companies were greenfield. So, we over my time in Asia, we've opened Japan, we've opened Thailand, Korea, South Korea, Taiwan, mainland China, Vietnam, Thailand, India. So we have Australia, South Africa. All of those companies are all in Turkey. They're all connected using the same operating system. So we want to bring our companies here in the United States together so that we're all using the same operating system, we're all using the same part numbers, all the same processes, so that our customers can get this totally seamless feel globally. So many of the customers that existed 10 years ago were independent and not global players. Those have been bought. So the existing customer base is evolving and changing, and we have to evolve and change with them. So consolidating our services, making sure that we operate as a single unit and can provide the type of global services that our customers need and want. And they have to have it so that they get the same level of service, the same level of quality globally, and that they get that same look, feel, and understanding as to what they can expect from Worth Industry Services globally. We know that, and this is always a very sensitive topic, they want the same level of service, but they're not going to get the same price. And they're not necessarily going to get the exact same part globally, but they expect the same level of quality and the same level of, as I said earlier, service. So we need to be able to do that. And the United States is that one area that, again, US, in my opinion, being behind in many ways, this is that one area of global connectivity and being part of a total global network hasn't always been in the United States, not only at Worth, but in our industry and how we do things. So that's what we're working on, and we're bringing ourselves toward that. And when it comes part of being part of the United States, our companies have all been very active in social topics within their regions. And now by bringing Worth into a more marketable point of view so that more people see it and recognize it, we might be able to have a bigger impact on our communities and do the things socially that the Worth family wants us to do. They don't do these things for recognition. They do it for what's right. And if we bring everything together, we can work better on identifying those things that the family really find are important to them and to the community. So it's not about only business and servicing our customers, but we want to bring all of our units together, operating as a single unit, and to bring and upgrade the levels of service that our customers are receiving and asking and wanting, not only in North America, but globally with this connectivity. So it's going to take us more than a day or two to accomplish this because we want to do it without losing all of those great things that we had by little regional companies, the look, the feel, the smell, and what everybody wanted, whether it was from Des Moines Bolt or Revcar or Marine Fasteners, keeping that while bringing in the whole globe and the connectivity of that. So that's what we're working on, and that's what we're going to drive for. And it's something that I believe our customers have been asking for. To me, it's been forever. But I know that my predecessors all had the same idea. Many of the things that we're working on today were ideas that were presented over the years, whether it was Dan Hill or Mark Strangquist. They all had a vision of us being able to work globally and be totally connected. And now's the time for us to do that. And that's what we're doing.
Well, just the ERP standardization portion of this project is daunting, as you know. And this is the piece that I've had probably the most intimate view of because we've been involved in so much of the data cleansing and the weeding out here and there. But that is not even complete yet. So I know that it's such a slog to do all these things. A lot of progress has been made for sure, but it is a huge task. And so with the reorganization and focusing on realigning business units and things, yeah, it's very large, but I have this sense that you've really turned a corner now. So in keeping with this, you've made a recent very substantial restructuring, right? So I think a lot of people may be still confused about the way you're laid out.
Well, yes, we're working on it. I don't know. I don't know the confusion, but yeah, we're moving things to try to centralize the management so that we're consistent throughout how we're doing things. So, um, and we're rebranding those companies. Worth Industry will be our brand, and we'll be bringing everybody under the same brand moving forward to help try to alleviate some of the confusion as to whether it's Worth Revcar, Worth Service Supply, Worth Adams. Everybody, well, most everybody in industry is accustomed to seeing the word worth, but now it'll just be Worth Industry as we move forward. Whether it was Northern Safety, then went to MSM, it'll be Worth Industry in the coming years as well. So we're bringing all of that together, and the objective is to eliminate any confusion in the marketplace as to what we're doing and how we're doing it. We want to be presenting ourselves and actually being one organization to our supply base and to our customer base. So one of the issues in the past is that you might have a customer with 5 locations throughout the United States being dealt with by 4 different Worth Industry entities. And now you'll be seeing that they'll be able to get one invoice, will be able to do the things that they want to do. And yeah, the data cleansing for all organizations is always a challenge, but we've got some really good people and we've got some really enthusiastic people working on the project and coming together, and getting that momentum going was something that it scares people because it is change, but it's a very positive change and it's a very exciting change. And we're going to see things start moving and getting quicker, and we're going to get a lot more efficient, and there'll be a lot more clarity as we move forward. And I would say one of the things that everybody can say is we don't have 100% of the answers, but we're really working hard to understand the specific questions that people might have. And as you know already, technology is evolving very, very fast. So things that I might say today that we'll be doing in 5 years, well, there might be totally different technology
Right.
available.
Subject to change.
Yeah. So we've allowed ourselves enough flexibility. We've got the general plan laid out, and we're moving forward, and we're really making a lot of headway. And I would say the biggest topic for us is positive mental attitude and making sure that we're properly communicating to our suppliers, to our customers, and to our people inside. Communications is always fun, but always challenging because you're not always 100% sure what message people are wanting to hear. So we're really experimenting with how we do things like podcasts, things like live streaming, simple emails. I'm trying my hardest. An entire team is trying our hardest to get out to every location, explaining to our team, explaining to our customers and our suppliers where we're going and where we want to and how we want to get there. So opportunities like this are tremendous for me, and it's really, really exciting times for us. And yeah, some people are going to be a little bit stressed because change is always, hey, I've been doing this for the exact same way for 30 years. Why should I change today? Well, 30 years ago, you were probably riding on bias ply tires, and today you've got all season run flat radial tires. So you're much, much safer today than you were before. So things evolve, things change, and we're hoping that everybody will hop on board and be enjoying the ride that we're on.
Right. That's a well-known story. So, but you hit it on the head there in terms of needing to repeat those messages and squeezing out all that ambiguity. Speaking from personal experience, and this is probably true across industries, but in the fastener industry, we've tried to communicate certain messages over and over and over, and years later, we still find, much to our horror, that some of the basic ideas just haven't really driven home widely yet. So just you got to keep hammering, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah, and I don't remember who, again, I don't have a great memory, but I was told that if you don't repeat a message 17 times, nobody thinks you're serious.
Yeah. Did you by any chance attend Rosa Hearn's marketing conference
No,
at IVE?
no, I
Because
did
she
not.
said that exact thing.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, it must be of kind of a industry standard in the world of marketing. But yeah, I've heard that, and I know that it's true, and it may be higher than 17, Larry.
Yeah, probably. And you just mentioned something marketing. We're really looking at how marketing can work and should work. And my people laugh at me because they ask me, what's marketing? And to me, it's kind of like if you watch the movies of the the medieval king, Arthur. He's got Merlin, or he's got a wizard or a mage. They don't know what they do, but they know they need it. And as we move forward, doing the marketing topics and how we do it and what we do is something that we're learning and experimenting with, because I know right now Rusty Parch and my marketing team are all giggling and laughing because they're wizards, and yeah, they're going to abuse the heck out of everybody else. But it's such a fascinating thing that we know we need it, but I don't know what it does. But I'm pretty darn sure we need it. So
Marketing, you know it when you see it.
I'll never make that claim, but it's something that's very, very important, and we're going to continue to explore it as well, and how we can get out there and again be part of the community and see where we can make a difference.
Well, let's fold back into something that you do know a lot about concretely, and it's filled with ambiguity also, but on the other hand, it's more of a business issue. You thought I might let you coast into the finish line on this one, but oh no. You mentioned a few minutes ago that all these things are subject to change and changing conditions, of course, which everyone understands.
Sure.
One of the looming huge potential issues on the horizon for everybody these days is this idea of this BRICS coalition, which is apparently arising as a competitor to the more Western, we'll call it the Federal Reserve System or the Anglo-American Alliance, or however you want to look at it. But in any case, we've got different ways of thinking about the economy, and they seem to be splitting. How does this impact a company like Würth, who's trying to evolve into this completely global entity? I mean, how do you guys think about this?
Well, we see it as a positive because it is inevitable that things are going to change and things are going to evolve. Will the US dollar go away as the number one currency? Probably not in my lifetime, but that's not to say 40 years ago, 50 years ago, anybody would have ever thought the euro would exist. Do I see the renminbi, Chinese yuan, becoming the currency to compete with the US dollar? Oh, I don't see that happening, but it's good if it does, because it gives people options and it allows almost a whole nother industry to continue to develop and grow. So we see it as a very positive thing, that it gives many countries an opportunity to develop and grow. It should help those countries that may or may not be as financially stable or able to do business in a way that we want them to do business. So I don't see it as a threat, and I don't think I'm pretty very confident the Würth Group does not see it as a threat. I don't necessarily see it as an equalizer, but I don't see it as a bad thing. So we'll see how it evolves in the future, but I don't think there's any major issues with the development and growth with how this happens, provided we don't go into these armed camps again, as when we were young folks and living under this fear of nuclear disaster. I don't believe it'll happen that way. But as far as an economic force I think it's a good thing.
Well, a lot of people are praying against that uglier scenario, and I hope you're right on that. And either way, it's going to be part of the upcoming operating environment. But I noticed that you did not offer the idea of a third option. So, in other words, the loss of the dollar or the rise of the RMB. But what about none of the above, and there's something altogether? I mean, and you don't know the answer to this either. I'm not expecting you to, but I think in those terms a lot, and we just don't know really what's around the corner, do we?
No, we don't. And I would say that should be a viable option, but in our current state of mind, it would be very, very challenging to get to that. Maybe our younger folks will, but prejudice, nationalism, all of those things will be what holds us back on that. And it would be great if my kids get the opportunity to have such a system in place. But right now, there's just way too much nationality involved and prejudice and all those evil, nasty things that exist in the world that would make that impossible to happen.
Well, you've got a massive organization to run, and I've been keeping you, and I very much
No.
appreciate you sitting with me. But I'd like to turn it back to one question that hinges off of what you just said, Larry. Hope you'll take this one in stride, but you figure you'll ever return to Asia to live?
It's quite possible. My wife and I have had that discussions. Um, I prefer warm and I don't mind moist. So yes, I would say absolutely we would. Now that my daughters, my kids grew up in Shanghai, so I'm living in Richmond, Virginia, which is to them is a quaint little village with lots of trees. So they miss not hopping on the subway or grabbing a bus or what we would call Uber. My oldest daughter is 17 and can't understand why I want her to drive. Well, why would I ever drive? Because she's, just walked out the door and around the corner and there was mass transit. So yeah, the quick answer was yes. I'm enjoying it here now. It's much easier for me with the language and how things operate. Still educational and train. I'm learning a lot about how to do business in the United States now. So I still have quite a bit of time yet to have some fun. But yes, I would not say no to going back to Asia and finishing things out.
All right. Well, a lot of unknowns still, but I think I get the flavor of that. And one thing we do know, though, and you said this earlier, you will be back in Vegas next year. I'd like to take a moment just to personally thank you and Würth for supporting the Fastener Show and, of course, the Fastener Training Institute. We need big hitters out there like you to keep behind it because, let's face it, it's a small ocean we're fishing in, and it's a very important effort that this is. So I thank you.
I really appreciate you letting me come on today, and I appreciate you letting me go on. And hopefully, you can cut out a couple of things that'll be of interest to other people. And I will say that we didn't talk about this, but one of the things I took away from the show that the strength of the fastener manufacturing industry in the United States, it feels much stronger than it was when I left. So I don't know if that's true, but it feels like there's still a lot of things being manufactured in the United States, and even more will be done in the U.S. in the future. So I think the industry for us is really strong, and the future is really, really bright for what we're doing and how we're doing it in the United States. So having seen it in Asia up close, there's always going to be a need globally for everybody to be able to do things. But it seems like we've got a lot going on here in the United States with regards to manufacturing. And of course, we've always had the great concepts and distribution and understanding full service and value. So the industry is very, very strong, and I think it's going to continue to get stronger in the years to come.
Larry Stevens, Würth Industry, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to getting the opportunity to chat with you again.
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fasteners Clearinghouse.